Finally today, one of the most common challenges for young bulls after their first breeding season is the fact that they sometimes get run down. Most young bulls will lose condition and weight during their first breeding season. We recently spoke with UNL cow-calf specialist Kacey McCarthy to get some of her advice when it comes to managing and developing young beef bulls. Market Journal's Mike Straub is standing by with this story.
Feeding young bulls to an optimum body condition score before and after their first breeding season will help extend their productivity and contribution to the cow herd.
So when we're thinking about developing bulls just right, the idea or concept here is we don't want to over or under condition our bulls. So a lot of times when we think about body condition score on that 9-point scale, that moderate body condition score of a 6 is kind of that ideal number that we're looking for. And so ultimately that's about 20 to 23% of body fat in those bulls. And ultimately what we're doing here is setting these bulls up for success because we know that during the breeding season, they're going to be growing. They're also going to be fairly active trying to figure out the whole mounting and getting females bred. And then they're going to be fairly active moving across pastures and maybe losing a little bit of weight. And so what we're seeing is during breeding seasons, bulls can really lose anywhere from 5 to 15% of their body weight. And so targeting that 6 body condition score ensures that those bulls have enough energy and body reserves on them to get the job done during the breeding season, but we're not setting them up for failure moving out of the breeding season and having to regain that weight. And so kind of targeting that 6 is really, ideal.
Between the end of their first breeding season and the start of their second breeding season, these young bulls need to gain about 2 pounds a day. Young bulls will need some supplemental energy and protein before the second breeding season.
So I usually like to recommend around that 2.5 to 3 pound a day gain, just to ensure that we're hitting that 6 body condition score and not getting them too fat or over conditioned. And so when we start to see some of those bulls getting over conditioned as they move into the breeding season, managing them to make sure that they're not losing too much weight. And then also we can see detriments to fertility and or total concentrations in that semen. And so just making sure we're setting them up on a good plane of gain throughout their development period really sets them up in the long run as they move into subsequent breeding seasons. So as we think about moving into later summer months and then into the fall, really making sure we continue that growth curve for those yearling bulls. And so trying to really target maybe about a 2 pound a day gain because those bulls have lost some weight. We need to encourage them to still grow and meet their target mature body weight. And so as we move into that next breeding season and into the winter, this is a great opportunity to start slowly implementing a energy and protein supplement, maybe like a Distillers or corn gluten meal or feed stuff that is going to provide some starch and fiber source, but also help target some of those 2 pound gains that we're looking for.
Make sure bulls that will be used in this breeding season have gone through a breeding soundness examination. It is best to have a BSE performed well before the start of breeding season to determine if additional bulls need to be purchased.
So a bull breeding soundness exam is kind of a 1 point in time test that your veterinarian will perform. And so if we think about what entails a breeding soundness exam, so it's going to be a physical exam, and then we're going to collect semen and look at motility and morphology. And so from that physical exam standpoint, your vet's going to be looking at feet and legs, eyes, teeth, overall body condition of those bulls. And then they're also going to look at those accessory sex glands. So they're going to palpate that bull, and then they're also going to look at that scrotum and ensure that there were no damage to the scrotum. Those testes are moving freely in that scrotum. And so when we start to see issues, maybe like frostbite, we were just working some bulls a few weeks ago, yearling bulls, and noticed some frostbite on a few of those scrotums. Now, when you look at the semen on those bulls, you can actually see some white blood cells and abnormalities just due to some of that damage. And so that's a really great way to test and make sure we don't have any fertility issues And so when we're doing that semen analysis, they're going to look at motility, and those bulls need to be at least 30% progressive motility. And then they're also going to look under the microscope and look at the sperm heads for morphological issues. And so they need to be at least 70% there to be qualified as a satisfactory potential breeder. And so once we get the physical and the semen characteristics checked, then those bulls generally will either pass, maybe be deferred and encouraged to test again, or fail that exam.
To develop young bulls just right for breeding season, it is encouraged to ensure those bulls are gaining 2 pounds a day and maintaining that gain even after breeding season. Supplement feed high in protein and energy to gradually regain any weight they lost during breeding season. Finally, make sure bulls have gone through the breeding soundness exam several months before breeding season to make sure they are in just right breeding condition. Reporting for Market Journal, I'm Mike Straub.